Last week, I discussed my Maker subscription box and why and how I came up with it. I am so excited to launch it at the end of this month. And if you guys missed that episode, head on over and take a listen. Now, in this week's episode, my guest is Royce from Roycycled Treasures. I'm sure many of you know Royce from her amazing decoupage papers. I personally love them and feature them in many of my YouTube upcycles. I can honestly say I am slightly obsessed. Now, let's go ahead and get this interview started.
Welcome to the Rescued and Upcycled podcast with weekly inspiration, tips on trying new techniques, and overall real talk about owning your own DIY business. Now, here's your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock.
Welcome back to Rescued and Upcycled. I'm your host, Sonnet Ullenbrock. I want to thank you all for joining me on my podcast. I can't believe we are officially on week 11, guys, and this is my 4th interview. I'm actually starting to feel like a semi-pro. Now, in this week's episode, I am so excited to introduce you to my good friend Royce from Roycycled Treasures. So let me go ahead and bring her on. Welcome, Royce. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Good morning.
Morning. I was thinking back to when I first discovered you or how I discovered you. And honestly, I think I was looking for a decoupage paper to add to my line of products. And I was testing a bunch of them out. And there was a gal at one of the local shops and she had your paper. And I bought 2 of them. And I featured them on one of my videos and I said, what do you guys all think of these papers? And I fell in love right away. Yeah. So once I tried them out and then I'm like, okay, I always like to search, the people behind the product. And then I discovered like your amazing style and your personality is awesome. And I'm like, she sealed the deal. So then I started first of all, I had to apply and then I started carrying them. So
yeah, no, my boys might agree that my personality is that awesome. They think I'm crazy, but
kids, mine do too. I know my daughter actually said to me, what did you do? I go, what are you talking about? And she's like, did you do something? Because a whole bunch of people came up and said, your mom is famous. I'm like, I have not done anything, Caitlin. It's so funny. I'm like, and you can tell them.
What did you do?
Yeah, what did you do? But I'm like, and you can tell them I'm not famous. And she goes, oh, don't worry, I did. I'm like, okay. I love kids. So
I know. We're so embarrassing. I just tell them that embarrassing you is like part of my job description.
Right.
As a parent, that's my job.
I need to do that. I need to tell them that. So I think I do embarrass her a lot though. Like, she always jokes around because, I always am like, hey, and like all my lives, I like, hey guys. And so that's kind of like a running joke between my daughter and my husband, hey guys. I'm like, oh, stop it. But yeah. So but I finally was able to meet you and Lexi at the IOD conference last year. So that was exciting. I mean, the conference was kind of a blur. It just seemed like it went so quick and
so fast and so many talented people in one space, right?
I know. Exactly. Yeah. So I was really excited to meet you both. And, there were just so many people. Yes. So much talent. I met Debbie Beard there. I met, obviously the IOD sisters, Annie Sloan, Jonathan Mark Mendez, just so much. So, so for my viewers and listeners that haven't had the opportunity to have met you or found you yet, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, Lord. That's an open-ended question. Let's see. My name is Royce Hunt Bell. It's hyphenated because I got married later in life. I don't know. I have been a creative like forever. Just not like officially, right?
Right.
I was like the weird kid who would take like the milk cartons. Remember? Oh, I'm older than you. The milk cartons. The paper milk cartons, and I would save them and cut them up and make things, and the pizza boxes, and like my Barbie had her house, but she also had like other stuff that I made,
Okay.
And I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and they didn't waste anything, right? And so I think I don't know, my grandmother would just take nothing and she would make it something like so useful. And I think that it's inherently just a part of how I'm wired. And
Right.
then my mom was artistic, like,
Okay.
she, sketched and drew and everything. So I don't know. I think it's there, right? And then you just have to figure out your own journey.
Right.
So
Like you talk about your grandparents or your grandma. My great grandma, that's where I have my love of like gardening from, because I remember going over there, like planting her flower beds, and they did everything from scratch.
yeah.
So I still remember she had this big cauldron. She would make her handmade soap. And when she passed away, I actually found her soap recipe. And that is like the base of my soap, my handmade soap that I make. But
Oh
I just
wow.
remember her stirring. And I think now how I do it. And I'm like, lye is so toxic. Like, I mean, to use like separately from soap, but she's out there just mixing it all up, measuring. And I'm like, I'm worried about getting one little speck into my eye. I've got goggles on and stuff. And I just think back to how she used to do it. And I'm like, it was so different. But
Yeah, my
yes.
grandparents, they basically had a homestead. I mean, they grew all their vegetables. One of my chores was getting eggs out of the hen house, which I hated. Like, just the sound of their wings now just makes me cringe a little bit. Um,
Right?
all the things, like
Yeah.
seriously, all the
Yeah.
things. I mean, it wasn't a homestead, it was their home, but like,
I know.
you know,
Well, and I like my mom and dad explained, like they lived through like the Great Depression. So they like I just remember too, like old, like as she aged, like we'd go over there and it would be like freezing cold in her house. She'd have it like on, like I gotta save pennies. So and we're like, Grandma, you're fine. You can turn the heat up and you don't need to be like bundled up like it's winter. You can enjoy the warmth of your home,
I
and
know,
so
and you guys have real winter, like,
yes, we have real winter.
oh,
I know, I don't understand, like, but my mom and dad are like, that's what she, like her like state of mind is she's still living through that and she needs to conserve. And I'm like, it just was a different time. But I don't know. That's where I ended up getting the poppies from in my logo of Senate's Garden
oh,
Blooms. Because I just remember pulling up in the spring, her entire side of her house was full of her poppies, and it was just beautiful. So she's inspired me a lot. And I just remember watching a reel, and you did talk about your grandma, and it sounds like she was a huge inspiration. So it sounds like more like your mom though was the creative inspiration, or was it your grandma too?
I don't, so it's funny. My mom was a very free spirit, right?
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And so I don't know. I have like all these co-parents.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so like my mom was very free spirited. I have some of her sketches, even because my mom had dementia. And I would just give her a sketch pad. Like, they would occupy her for hours. And
Oh,
even after, she was pretty far down that road, she could still sketch like these beautiful sketches that she would do in her book. It's just interesting that that part of her never, like, she never lost that.
right.
Um,
Oh.
yeah. So my mom was artistic. My grandmother wasn't necessarily artistic, but she was just,
So
I
that's
think
where you
that
got the
entrepreneurial
upcycle.
spirit from my grandmother, I think, is where that comes from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So like even back then, did you always think in the back of your mind, like someday I'm gonna own my own business?
No,
No, you didn't.
I would love to tell you some inspirational story about how I came up with this idea and I had a business plan and I laid it out. No, that's not how it happened.
No. Okay.
It
I was
was,
like I was like, there's gotta be. I'm like, I have all these questions I want to ask her about, like, like, did she have an idea when she was a child? Because some people do.
I
And
know. Some people, I don't know. I told you, like, we were getting ready for the interview, like, I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. My son, my oldest one who just left, he always tells his friends, he would make fun of me. He's like, my mom always has a side hustle. Um, so I worked,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I've always like worked, but um, I don't know. My grandmother taught me that if you want something, like you just have to you just have to do it. Like you
Mhm.
have to make it happen,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
so my kids, I always wanted them to be active and be in sports, but like, you have fees for the sports and you have equipment and you have all the things.
Oh, yes.
And so I used to braid hair, you know what I'm saying? I've always had something I did on the side. And so my creative business started off as a side hustle. Like,
Okay.
um, my road has been really windy. So I was a executive director of a nonprofit, and we serve the seniors in our community. So Meals on Wheels, in-home services. We have a senior center. I'm still involved, even though I'm not there
Oh,
anymore. And I have a very specific management style, and I always like to promote from within. So I had promoted one of the gals who used to do the in-home services to an administrative position, and she was like super nervous about it. So as a joke, I made her. So her husband is like a serious sportsman. You go to their house, there's like bears, elk, fish, like there's everything on the walls. Like he travels, he loves it. Like this is what
right.
he does, right? So as a joke to make her feel at home, I made this paper mache deer head for her office, right?
All right. All
And
right.
so, um, but like even that, like that's why I say it's just in here, right? Because I
Mhm.
can think of something that I want to do and I'll figure out a way to make it, you know. So I made this paper mache deer head and then people wanted them. So I
Okay.
was like, And I had just discovered Etsy. And so I was like, I'll just post one on Etsy and we'll just see what happens. And so they started selling. I was charging like $50 a piece.
Oh my gosh, 'cause you're talking about the ones that I've seen, right? The kind like that you
Yeah.
make? Yeah. Oh,
And this was in the early days, though. They probably weren't as pretty as the ones you've seen. But
okay.
still, like, I didn't know. I was like, oh, I'll just put it on there and
Yeah.
see. And so I started doing the paper mache deer heads, and I kept raising my prices, and people kept ordering. I was shipping them all over the world. It was absolute madness. I have a full-time job and children,
Oh, and you're
and I
making paper
am,
mache.
yeah. So, um, so I started looking for paper because people would have custom requests. Like, my husband, my favorite one, my husband is a science teacher at the university. And so I made him one and I used like specific dictionary pages with like, different things. And so but the request started getting so specific that it was hard to find things in the wild that I could use, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
that's why I started looking for a way for me to be able to create what I wanted. And that's what kind of sparked like the decoupage things. But even then, I was making the paper so I could use it on these pieces. And then I had a business that came to me to make 50 deer
Oh.
heads in like,
Oh,
yeah, in like 45 days.
in
And
25
I was,
days, did you say? Oh
yeah,
my.
I have photos of my island and my kitchen island. It's just absolute insanity. And I was so excited about the opportunity though, right?
Yeah.
So I said yes. And
Because we can never say no. If you're
right?
anything like me, I'm like my husband's like, "Why don't you say no?" I go, "'Cause I can't."
I don't, so I want, help me circle back to that because I do want
Okay.
to have that conversation. But um, so anyways, so I'm making these deer heads. I make the 50th one for this company and I'm done. That is the last deer head I ever made.
Oh, the very last one you've ever made. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, I made one for myself, but like
Right.
for
Yeah.
to sell. I'm like, okay, this is not the business. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't a sustainable business model. I wasn't generating enough revenue to justify the time. And it was a
Right.
lesson for me to
Yes.
learn, right?
Right.
And so, but I did enjoy the decoupaging. And so I started decoupaging like furniture. I already painted furniture and I would sell little stuff like chalkboards and little things. And so I started decoupaging furniture. And then I live in a small community and there are a lot of makers here.
Oh.
And we all do the same things, but different. So like
Mhm.
my friend, Trisha, she is like farmhouse.
Okay.
And so she's like asking me for, can you make like this design and this design and this design? So I'm making designs for her. And then my other friend, Dana Cheryl, she's a cowgirl, right? And so she's like asking for other things. And so I don't know, it was this really gradual process. And so I was creating these designs and I was, marketing them and selling them. And I go to a retreat in Tennessee, and
Okay.
that's where I met Meryl LaFay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And there was 11 of us at this retreat. Angela had invited us to come as guest instructors, kind of what we're doing in October.
Yeah.
And we are sitting in, we all stayed at Angela's house. My kids thought I was crazy. They're like, okay, wait, you're flying to Tennessee to go and stay the week with your Facebook friend? Like, what are you doing?
That is so funny. Because that was something I would do. I would totally. I'm like, yeah, I haven't met you. I just met you on Facebook. We're best friends, but
We're best
yeah,
friends. But I mean, we both carried the same paint line, and we had, you know what I'm saying? You know how it
yeah,
is. Like, we
yeah.
had engaged a lot, and we knew a lot of the same people. So I knew it wasn't like Jeffrey Dahmer was not going to be happening,
You're right.
right? And so I went and stayed, and so it was a beautiful thing because we're in the kitchen like after hours, after we're done teaching at Angela's house, and Marilla Faye was like the main one, and there were some other ladies there, and they're like, Royce, we need your paper in our shops. And so I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so Mara was just like, I need your paper in my shop. I need that paper, Royce. You need to figure it out. And so we sat there and we brainstormed some ideas or whatever. So I came back home and I made some phone calls, and um I mean, I always say all of it is led by the Lord, right? Because I did not go to business school. I don't know anything about manufacturing. There was nothing innately in me that made any of this possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was led to this place. And so in November of 2018, I took my first wholesale order with 12 retailers, right?
Okay.
On a spreadsheet.
Okay. Oh my word.
Yes, girl. You know, and so it was a hot mess, but I mean, it wasn't really a hot mess then because it was only 12 people.
Right.
But it got to be a hot mess when I got up to like 25 people on a spreadsheet. And so then we had to build out the website. And so it's just been this really gradual process. And I just follow the opportunities and
Right.
I just do what I do. And then the Lord blesses it and he leads me to the new place. Like, so it wasn't like this like wholly contemplated idea that I like work hard to, no.
Okay.
I know.
Yes, because that was like one of my biggest questions. Like, how did you decide on this decoupage business? So it kind of just like the door opened for you.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah,
stepped through it, right?
right.
Out of faith, I stepped through it. But I do have a passion for decoupage. Like to me, when I started using it, I'm like,
I love it.
this paper can completely transform something
Right.
like that.
Right.
You know?
That's why I think like once I used it, that is exactly how I felt. I'm like, it totally makes your project look just yeah, it transforms it and it's easy,
Yes.
and I love it. Did you always know like tissue paper, like that thin tissue paper, or had you tried any of the other like rice paper, any of the other thicker
I
paper?
hadn't. Like
Oh,
I didn't know. So like it wasn't, honest to God, it wasn't like I was like in that world and I made my separate product. Like I needed this is my grandmother, right? I needed something,
yeah.
so I made it.
Okay. I love it.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that was my journey. And honestly, it wasn't until, and so once I launched the brand, you know, now, as you know, I'm doing videos and I'm educating people on how to use the product. So now I'm doing my own research for ideas and things. And that's when I discovered that, oh, rice paper. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it was when I started doing my research to look for different procedures and to be able to teach that I saw that people were using the rice paper. I did try like the mulberry rice paper, but it's my own, and it's just me because people love rice paper, and I understand. But the fibers to me, I don't like that part, and so I stayed with my substrate
Yeah.
because I like it. I used to work with a thinner tissue paper, and I liked it, but the learning curve was so steep. So that's how I landed on the 18 pound because
Okay.
it still virtually disappears on your surface when you use it, but it doesn't have quite the learning curve that the thinner paper has, you know, because it tears so easily.
I know. I just on my last video, I mean, I feel like I'm almost, well, I'm not going to say a pro, but I feel like I know how to use it pretty good. And then I overworked an area and I'm like, okay, I could edit this out of the video, but I am not going to. I'm going to tell everybody
No.
that I make boo-boos too and I showed how to fix it.
I think it's important for our people to know because I sometimes people have a perception like, oh, you can do that, but I could never, or I don't have the skills to do that. So that's why I show my mistakes because that's part of learning.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh, absolutely. And I it's funny because I always just leave it all in there. Like even as I am creating on the video, like if I decide I'm gonna go this route and then I talk about like why I changed and it's and I do that on my lives too.
well, I saw your tray you made. Was it orange? And then you decided to
It
go
was
white?
yellow,
Oh,
yellow,
yellow. Yeah,
yellow.
yeah, yeah. And you decided to go with the white.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, because I had a vision, but my vision and when I put the yellow on that tray, it was not the vision that I saw in my head. I'm like, that is not how like, I don't know. Like, and when I looked at the yellow, it was such a like a creamy yellow. And then I put it on the tray and it was like, whoa, in your face yellow. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
But
So
that's
that
the
was
process though, right? And so if someone is new to creating and they come and every time they watch you, you're perfect, then I think it gives them the impression of or the pressure to be perfect themselves.
mhm,
And it negatively impacts their growth because then
right.
they're scared to try things.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Um, yeah, that's a really good point. Yes, because a lot of people always will say that to me too, that they like that I show the good, the bad, and the ugly, So, because sometimes, and even sometimes at the end, I'm like, I don't even know if I really love this, but this is how it turned out, and somebody may love it, just not me. So, I can't
Somebody
make
else
every
may love
project
it.
perfect, but
Yeah. When I first started going, well, because when Facebook Live first started, look, I'm aging myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to do that because, you know, I love teaching adults. It's like really, it's a thing for me. I
yeah.
just love it. Even professionally, when we have trainings, it's like, who wants to be the trainer? I'll go, I'll do it. Really, because I love it. I love that whole thing. And so, um, my friend Joni, I was like, because in the beginning, everybody who was live were like these girls with their makeup and their
Oh,
hair, and they were coming on lives and they looked, everything was so perfect. The lighting was perfect. I was like, oh, like I don't even have the capacity to do that. And my friend Jody was like, show up authentically who you are as you are, and you will draw your tribe.
mhm.
Like that's how it works. And so she kind of pushed me out the nest. And I've been a hot mess ever since.
Yeah.
I used to open my lives with Welcome to the Hot Mess Express. Like
Oh my
seriously.
gosh. That is funny. Well, and the one thing talking about lives, because I was terrified to go live the first time. I remember I was encouraged to do it and I'm like, okay, and I work really well when I set dates for myself. Like I'm like, okay, I'm doing it by this day and this is it. And I like rip off the band-aid and I just do it. And so I did it and I just remember being like so nervous and my lives have definitely changed as time went on. And one thing I really like is I love getting feedback from my customers my viewers, who watch me. And one person actually wrote, like, you are totally unprepared. And I'm like, no, I'm totally prepared. I know what I could do with this item, but I'm actually asking and polling my viewers. So, like, to bring them in so that they feel like they are also participating. And so,
I've
there's,
had those kind of comments. You need to get your stuff together because my house is tiny. Like it's probably 1,000 square feet, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I didn't have like now we bought like those tiny sheds and we
yep,
built it out. We put it in the backyard. So that's like my studio space now, right?
right.
But in the beginning, I was like setting up a table in my living room and bringing all my supplies in here. And, I'm taking care of my mom, and she had dementia. So she's like on this side of the table, right? And you'd hear her snoring sometimes on the camera because she
Oh my
falls asleep.
gosh.
And so,
That's
and I would forget stuff. Like
right.
inevitably, I would forget something. And I remember I had people, you need to get yourself together. And you know what? That's just not my Sally, right?
Mm-mm.
That's not my customer because my
No.
customers, they know I'm a hot mess. And
Right. No, exactly. Like, and yeah, I totally like, and that, I try to have everything ready too, but there are times where it's like, where someone will say, hey, try this. And I'm like, oh, that's way over in the other, corner of the room. And They're like,
Yeah.
"Grab it, who cares?" I'm like, "Okay, this
Or
is."
you're creating, and we
Yes.
pivot when we're creating, right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes you don't see the opportunity until you're, like, in the act of creating. You're
Right.
like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
I could do this," and you may not have thought of it before.
Right. Exactly. And so that's what I try to show on my lives too. So I love yours too. And everyone said that I need to get like my hubby involved, like you have yours. I mean, that's really awesome.
Be
So
careful,
be careful.
be careful. No, he was supposed to be like because in the beginning, I am not kidding you, I had a lamp,
Okay.
and, by the time David started helping, I did have, like, a stand for my phone. But when I first started going live, I would just take a hair tie and put my phone around, like, a full wine bottle.
Okay.
Like, I'm not kidding you, right? And
Yep.
so I was like, "I can't see the comments because my phone was, like, over there," right? So I was like, "Can you just read the comments for me?" So he was just supposed to be, like, my monitor,
Right. And
but
now he's like joined right on
yeah,
in.
that was, like, 4 years ago. So
Okay.
we've
That's
evolved.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, because that's what my viewers are like, "We want your husband on," and well, and the funny thing is because my brother made a comment, that all my viewers are my bloomers, Sonnet's Garden Blooms, like my bloomers, I'm making them
Oh,
bloom,
that is so
and
awesome.
I know, so now I'm like, "You guys, my brother calls you my bloomers," so now, like, they're all coming on, they're like, "Hey, it's your bloomers, hey, bloomers," and I'm like, "Oh
That is so awesome. I cannot think of a name for my audience. I have
god."
not come up with a good name yet. Bloomers, that is so perfect.
Yeah. And so they're like, "We want your brother to come on either a live or on your podcast." And I said, "Oh gosh, no." It might be too real at that point. I'd be editing out a lot of stuff because if it's a podcast, but on a live, you can't edit it out. So
Oh,
he
that is
just
hilarious.
he might tell too many stories about his sister. But
He knows where all the bodies are buried.
oh gosh, right. I was a saint, I will be honest. I'm the oldest, so I was always afraid to do anything bad, like, because they were the strictest with me.
Yeah,
They were.
I'm the oldest. I always say I had, like, this little tiny line, like, this wide, right? And then my brother came along, and his line was like this.
Right.
And
I
then
know.
my baby sister came along, and there was just nothing.
Yes. So it's me, my sister, and then my brother, and he got, like, the free for all. I'm like, if I'm like, "When is he coming home?" "Oh, we don't know." I'm like, "I would have had to been home, like, at 9 o'clock, and
Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, he just does everything." But
I hear it
yeah.
from my boys now too, though, because my boys are 11 years apart.
Okay, yes. So that's interesting. Yes, Caitlin and Cole, my son, too, are 9 years apart. So
So we're different people. And I
yeah.
think as you get older, I think as a younger parent, a lot of it is we're worried about what other people are going to think, right?
Mhm.
And then you have like this vision in your mind of what parenthood's going to look like, and your kids teach you really quickly.
Oh, yes.
That's
Yes.
not the case,
No, I
right?
know, right?
And so
Yeah.
we're like really stern with that first one because we have this idea. And then as we get older, I think I realize what's important and what's not important. And as I get older, I care less and less about what other people think.
Right. Oh, yes.
Um, and children get here. And as a grandparent, girl, I'm just the worst. My son is
Oh,
like, really?
right. Yes. I haven't gotten to that stage yet, but, like, my husband and I well, when our son calls and we'll be like, because we normally communicate pretty often, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he's like, "Hey, can I come over?" And, like, or he wants to do something, and I look at my husband, I'm like, "What do you think he's gonna tell us?" My husband's like, "Why do you always think the worst?" And I'm like, "'Cause I don't want him to all of a sudden say like, 'Hey,' I want him to be like, 'I proposed,' or 'I'm going to propose,' but I don't want him to all of a sudden pop the like, 'Oh yeah, by the way,
I'm
something else
getting
is
married
happening.'"
tomorrow. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
I know. I'm just like always worried. But he's such a good guy, good kid, and
Yeah,
he's not a kid anymore. He's an adult, but he's still my kid.
they're
So,
always kids.
yeah.
My oldest is 33. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. But that's awesome though that your husband is involved and I will maybe get my husband maybe involved. We'll see. I'll
I
take that
think
one.
a lot of people though are just curious about our life too, right?
Yes, they
Like
are.
they see us and they're just curious about the rest of our life. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's what they say. They want to meet the man behind Sonnet or something. They always say something like that. I'm like, okay. Uh, so on my podcast, I asked him if he could introduce me on my podcast. And so he said he came in here and I had it all like typed up for him. All he had to do was read from a script. So I'm standing there and I hit the record button and he says one word and he bursts out laughing. And I'm like, you can't laugh. You have to like sound serious. So you like, okay, just give me another chance. I'm like, yeah, we're going to redo it. So we redo it. And again, he looks at me. He's like, you got to get out of this room. You're making me so nervous. You're watching me. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm watching you because I'm like, you have to say like five words, you know? And so finally I hit the record button. I ran out of the room and I'm like listening outside the door. And then he's like, oh, we got to do it again. He retook it like 12 times. And then finally the last take, because I said, Craig, you have to get some like oomph. You know, you can't just talk monotone. You have to have some like, you know, like you're normally talking. And then he got like real animated on the last one. I'm like, that's good enough.
That'll work.
Yeah.
That'll work. Oh, how funny. It'd be fun to see those outtakes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw our Christmas greeting from last year with me and David.
No.
I did like a blooper reel of like all of our outtakes because my husband he's a mess. Yes. And so we're like, okay, I'm like, hi, you know, Merry Christmas, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, and then he'll just say something. I'm like, really? He's like ruining the takes on purpose, like being a dork. Like, and so I put them all in there. I made like a blooper reel. And then at the end, I did the real one.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
I should do something like that he would kill me. He would. He'd be like, oh, Sonnet, why would you do that? But it's fine.
It's
like,
fine.
Yeah. So, circling back to your business, I do, you know, your name, Roycycled, like, I think it's brilliant. Like Royce and upcycled, I'm assuming is like where,
Royce and recycling.
Oh, recycling. Okay. Because
Royce and
I thought
recycled.
upcycled.
Either way, right? Because that's what we do, recycle, upcycle. I was looking for a name for my business and I had I wanted my name. Like I didn't want to just think of a name and then have it just be a name that's out there. And so I thought of all kinds of names. Like I used to spend time in my grandmother's attic. She had like trunks up there with like stuff. And I would go up there and I would play dress up and, you know, be a kid or whatever. But I loved it because I could just make believe and create my own world up there. So I was like, ooh, I could do craft attic, like a play on words, like attic, but addict. It was already taken.
Oh.
Right. So I had all these ideas. And my friend Tracy had come by my office because I used to take old frames, you know, and I would do the chalk paint on the panel and I'd make these really pretty chalkboards. And so she had come to pick up her chalkboard that she had bought. And I told her, I says, oh, I wish I could come up with a name for my business because every time I think of something really cool, I look it up and it's already taken. And so she's like, well, have you prayed about it? And I'm like, well, I haven't. So Tracy prayed with me in my office that day. And that was probably about noon because she came on her lunch break to pick up the frame. About 3:30 that afternoon, Roycycled came to me.
Oh,
I'm not kidding you.
That's awesome.
Roycycled. I love my name, but I will be honest with you. It's clever, but it doesn't always serve me. You know what I mean? Because it's clever, but like if someone's looking for decoupage paper, you know, they may not necessarily find my name.
Right.
Or if they're looking for crafting, they may not. I mean, I don't know. You know, At this point, I think me and Google we're good. Yeah. But in the beginning, it was a challenge because my name just didn't automatically resonate with what I do necessarily.
Right.
And even like if I search images or something, a bunch of bicycle stuff will come up.
I don't mean to laugh, but oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. So
yeah, so it's interesting, but no, I love my name, and so Roycycled was born after that, and it's trademarked. You know, it's copywritten, it's protected, and my logo and everything. So I love it now. I mean, I love it. It's fine. I just have to do a little bit more extra work on the marketing side, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, I love it too. And I was like, it was funny because I was talking to my mom about it, and then she's like, "Well, it's her name." I'm like, "Well, Roycycled is not her name. Royce is." But and then she goes, "Oh yeah, it is upside." Well, we thought upcycled, but recycled. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I didn't even
See?
think about that. So, and so when did you really like? So I've been watching all your reels and like you going through your whole, well, we'll call it our inventory, not our hoard, but like I wanted to come to your rummage sale. I was like, gosh, do you think I could get a trailer and just drive to Arizona? I mean, I probably would have came home with everything. So, I mean, like, did you just start like collecting? Like how did it all
I
start?
just So, about the time that I had stopped doing my deer heads, my ex and I separated. And so I went from making that like smaller stuff, like the frames and stuff, to the furniture because I could generate more revenue from my home,
Right.
right? And so I would go thrifting. Part of the problem is it wasn't just me. Like I have friends who are pickers.
Okay.
Yes.
And they
So
pick for you.
they pick with me, right? And
Yeah.
so you have this community and you guys all love the same thing. It's hilarious. My landlord for my warehouse, his sister is one of my fellow pickers.
Okay.
And so when I called him about the warehouse, he goes, "You know my sister Kim, right?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You buy all that crap just like she does." I'm like, "Yep, I do. I do." I'm just like Kim. But we do. And so I just started. When I first started, I used to pick everything.
Yeah.
Like if it looked interesting, I would get it. But over the years, I've gotten more like, narrow about what I will pick. But I think it was just the excitement of being able to buy. And back when I started, I mean, I remember buying this desk at Goodwill and I paid like $15. It was like a solid wood, carved, beautiful desk with legs. It was so gorgeous. And it was like a mid-size, it wasn't huge.
Mhm.
And I was able to bring it home and paint it and decoupage on it, and I sold it for like $150. You know what I mean? So like that was the hook, was being able to go out. But nowadays, like the prices are
Oh
crazy right now.
gosh.
I mean, they're
And
not crazy. It's fine, but it's not $15 like it was when I first started.
exactly. Well, yes, and, like, I have mentioned that on videos, like, when sometimes, like, even, like, thrifting at, like, the local Goodwill, sometimes it's more expensive to buy it there used than if
Yeah,
I would go and try to buy it brand new somewhere
yeah,
else, and, I just can't even believe it, or, like, the price tag is on the back from the original place,
yeah.
and they're trying to sell it for more, and I've mentioned, like, I can't believe the prices these days, and I have gotten some like backlash from, viewers saying, well, that's how they make their money. I'm like, I get that. But when they're trying to charge more than what the original price was and they're getting
For a
it,
donated item.
yes, a donate, I know they
Yeah,
received it free. So
yeah.
and really, it is meant for people that need, are needy. So they have to keep that in mind. But I think they have gotten wind that there are upcyclers and people who repurpose or resell. They should just be happy that we're, buying some of that. So,
And we have to put time and energy into those pieces. So like that desk, I was able to mark it up, but like, I had to clean it up. I had to fix a couple of things. I painted it. I decoupaged it. There's the price of my products. There's my time,
right.
all the things that go into creating this unique piece. And my friend Angie bought it. And, Angie has it and nobody else has a piece like that.
Right.
Right. And so like, I guess, but it takes a lot of work to get
Yes.
from buying it at the thrift store to what you're listing it for.
Yes. I
Yeah.
know, and I tell, like, I have a membership group, and I tell my gals, "Your time is money, and you put in you have to remember, like, what products you're putting into your piece. You have to figure." I think so many people don't value maybe it's not that they don't value their time, but they don't realize, like, it takes time to do those things, like, the cleaning. I just cleaned some pieces for Antique Acres to prep them. I was like, "Oh my lord." I spent more time, I think, cleaning them than it took me to upcycle them, so
Yeah. Because a lot of times people, especially here, people will have them like in a barn or something,
Mhm.
they're
I
like
know.
dirty.
Oh gosh. Like the dresser that I just I'm not even done with it yet, but it was sitting in like an old garage and it was just dusty and like cobwebs and I scrubbed it like 3 times to get it clean and finally I'm like, okay, now it's like in sellable like where I feel okay selling
So good.
it. I'm like,
I
I am
would
not.
vacuum the dirt out when it's dry first,
Yeah.
then add the water. I learned
Yeah.
that really quickly early on.
Yes.
If you add the water first, you just have mud.
Oh gosh. Right. Yes, yes. So that just took me forever. I was like saying some words under my breath as I was doing it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Sometimes I like, oh, why sonnet? But
But
it's gonna turn
and
out awesome.
I love now I've narrowed down like what I pick. I'm actually getting ready. I don't know. I go through these phases where I'm like ready to just get rid of everything. Um, I love the story and the history. Like this ceiling right here. I don't know if you can see my ceiling.
No.
It's antique tile.
Oh.
It's an antique tile out of a building in a neighboring county. And the guy had the pieces listed on like Marketplace. And I was like, I'll buy it all. Give me a price. And so I bought an entire building of this tile for $300.
Wow.
And so we went and we drove and we got it. Well, when I got there, it was so hilarious. My husband, he has a radio show now. He works in radio.
Oh.
He's been a journalist for like 40 years. But before that, he was the managing editor of our newspaper. And so, but we live in a really small community. So he managed a newspaper for 3 counties, for our neighboring counties and for this one. Well, the building where I went to go get the tile from was the old building from where he used to work when he was the
Oh,
managing editor of Range News, which I think is hilarious, right?
yeah.
So I don't know, you buy these things that people are going to throw out, but they have so much purpose and so much history and things people used to like. They didn't just make things, like it was a craft,
Mhm.
you know. Um, and so my kids have learned, you can go and buy a brand new bedroom set. That's fine. It's going to be some press board and some staples and some plastic and okay,
Right.
right?
I know.
Or I can go pick up this dresser that's like dovetailed and it's already 150 years old and it's still in really good shape, which to me is like proof that it's really well
Right.
made, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
And so just the craftsmanship and the history. And then, of course, I have my aesthetic, my kind of apothecary kind of, I don't know. I don't know what, I guess dark academia, which
Mhm.
is funny to me, explains my aesthetic, even though dark academia is new. Like it's
Yeah.
been my aesthetic for a long time. So I'll say that's my aesthetic. But
I love
um,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. I know, I just remember you like there was a video where you're like, I'm reclaiming my porch or whatever you were doing. And I'm like, oh, that's what I need. Well, that's what I'm doing this year because I have my October event coming and I want everyone over one evening. And with my business being so busy, things have kind of slid to the wayside, like my yard and
yeah,
where like it is not a joke when I talk about my greenhouse becoming a storage unit. There's just things that I have to, like accomplish. So, but yes, I love the character of all those, like how you talked about the ceiling. And that's what I've been slowly but surely trying to do, add like different pieces that have that character to it to make my house not just a house, but like a home and make it feel cozy and my style too. So,
yeah. And I think like as I've gotten older, because I used to worry about like, oh, what are the in colors? I don't care.
I know.
Like I'm the one who has to live here.
Yep. That's right.
I want to make it perfect for us, and
Right.
other people don't have to like it. You
Right.
know, I have a lot of stuff though. Like my housekeeper comes over and she does not dust. I dusted this before we came on today, so I wouldn't be
Okay.
embarrassed. But she won't dust, which I don't blame her because I have so much. But I'm a collector.
Right.
And I don't want to collect it and just like hide it away somewhere. I want to have it out where I can enjoy it. So
Oh my gosh, we are so much alike because my husband too, he's like, I think he must have realized, or he must have seen something about a minimalist and like a maximalist. And all of a sudden he's looking around. He's like, you are definitely not a minimalist. You are a maximalist. And I'm like, I'm a collector, honey. I'm like, there are things everywhere. And I too live in a small like Cape Cod home. So we don't have a lot of big like lofty spaces to put it in. So it's like, yeah. It's
Vertical space, lots of vertical space.
yes. And it's cozy. I always say that we live in a cozy home. So,
Yes.
but yes. Oh. Um, so one question I do have for you, what have been some of the struggles or obstacles that you have had to overcome with your business? I mean, it sounds like everything kind of like the doors opened and you prayed a lot, but have you had to have, or did you have any struggles that you've had to overcome or any obstacles?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that I've learned as I've gotten older. Every struggle, every all growth comes with struggle, or struggle comes with growth. I'll say that, right? So every
Mhm.
time my business reaches a place where it plateaus and it's time for growth,
Right.
there's struggle, like every
Yes.
time. So
Yes.
like I was doing all my orders on, like I told you, I was taking like people were emailing me their orders on like these forms, and I had them, and I would take them and put them on the spreadsheet, and I would send that in for the orders to be like it was easy when it was like, I don't know, 12, 15, 20. But at one point I got up to, I think 30 was the breaking point. Where I was just like, this is just not going to be manageable.
Right.
Because you have all these emails, and you know how Gmail does, you have like all these, I mean,
Yes.
it was mayhem, right? And so I went to my local friend here, and I'm like, okay, Justin, I need you to help me. We got to figure out something. So they built me like a specialized back end of my site where you guys now are able to log in and do your orders.
Okay.
And so that transition was just so hard because they were building it from scratch. So I knew at this point that I needed it, but it still took like 3 months for it to be done. And at that point, my business was growing exponentially. So,
Mhm.
girl, I was on the struggle bus. Like it was so hard, to keep track of everything, and
Right.
the stress of that. And then, Lord forbid you mess up somebody's order. They paid money for it, and there's been a mistake on their order, and so that was like super stressful. And then we got the site up, and then it was like, exhale.
Right.
And then during COVID, the manufacturing was just so hard because we were all dealing with the challenges. But like my manufacturer was having trouble getting the raw materials to make the paper.
Mhm.
And we supply chains are interesting because I'm a nerd, by the way. I love like I'm fly by the pants, but I'm a nerd. I'm like weird because I love evaluating systems and how they work. I'm always curious.
Okay.
So like supply chain issues. So when you think about what it takes to make that one sheet of paper, right? So he has to source the paper. He has to source the ink. You know
Oh,
what I'm saying? He
yes.
has to source the parts for the machinery to be able to print the paper. He like all these things. So there were sourcing issues. And then even beyond him, the people who make the paper, they have to source the pulp and the binder and you know what I'm saying? And so
Right.
the supply chain is so complicated. And the further you go down, the more complicated it gets, right?
Right.
And so we were having issues, and and also during that time, everyone was at home. And so our niche just like boomed,
Oh, right.
right?
Yes.
So my demand, like,
Skyrocketed.
I was trying to think of something bigger than quadrupled, but I couldn't.
Okay.
It
Yes.
it skyrocketed. And at the same time, we were having issues getting the product made. And so it was super, super stressful, just super stressful. And during that time, we had gotten up to like 385 retailers.
Wow.
So
Where are
just the
you at now?
service, we're about 250. The market has corrected significantly, which
Okay.
I'm fine with.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, just the customer service piece, right? Of managing all that is super difficult. And then you have different personality types, different communication styles, so you can't internalize things because I would just be crying in a corner somewhere if I did. Um,
I hear ya.
you know, and it's a lot. It's a lot. You're juggling a lot of things. And then I come from a nonprofit background. And so it's not like fair. Like you just log on and you just buy stuff, right? Like I feel like my heart is to have a real commitment to my retailers. It's
Right.
why I don't sell directly, you
Right.
know. Um, but also like offering opportunities to have access to like business training on the back end, continued education. I try to have at least one free, like full on class every year.
Mhm.
And it's like we were talking about before we came on, you're juggling all these things and you're managing the manufacturing and that end,
Right.
and the customer service and the marketing piece. And so I love what I do, but there are days when I sit down on my computer and I'm just stuck because I'm not sure what to do first.
Right. Oh, I hear ya. Like, in my head, I feel like a squirrel. Like, I'm like, "I gotta do this. I gotta do this. This has to be done. That," and then I'm like, all of a sudden, almost like immobilized. Like, I don't
Yeah,
even know what to do. That's some days
because they're
it's
all important. They're
yeah.
all equally important. So you can't because my friend's like, oh, just prioritize and make a list.
Oh, I have a to-do list, but I can't yes, exactly. Like, what is the most important thing? Like
Yeah. And so yeah, so there's a lot, and every time you scale, there are challenges. So this time
mhm,
we completely changed our model because I wanted to have more control over my quality, more control over my brand's reputation and our niche. So
right.
we moved to warehousing, and I had never ever done anything. I've never managed a warehouse. I've never been in a warehouse, and so this was a huge leap of faith. And on the back end, there's just all these challenges, and the people on the front don't know that. And it's not for them to be concerned with. They're just
Right.
looking at you, and you have an obligation to deliver or to be whatever your brand, what, right? And
Mhm.
so they don't know. But last year was really tough. Last year was super tough. Like last quarter of last year, I got up every day and I would write three things. These are the three things that I have to do today. And for me, because I'm a visual person, usually I can see exactly what, even if it doesn't end up being that exact thing, I have the comfort of knowing that I can see exactly what I want it to be. Well,
Right.
I didn't have that with this. Yeah. So my level of stress was just insane. And so I just got up every day and I'm like, okay, what are three things that I could do that could move me forward? Not even like make huge progress.
Mhm.
Like literally, I had some days where I'm gonna double check my listings on the new Shopify website. Like that was on my list because I had to keep that forward momentum, even though I was literally paralyzed.
Right.
And so when you're taking a leap of faith and you're challenging yourself to operate way outside of anything that you've ever done, that in itself can be a huge challenge. And a lot of times we are our biggest barrier, or we can be, right?
Yes. Wow. I know, and so I just have to ask, how has it been, like, folding all your papers? Because you fold all of them for your warehouse?
I do.
Girl, that alone, I'm like, "Oh."
We have help. I mean, I have contractors who like they're older, they're not interested in having a full-time job.
Okay,
My one guy that I have, I love him. He and his partner love to travel. And so when they're here, he's like,
okay,
just let me know. And he'll come and he puts his headset on, and I pay per piece. I
okay.
don't pay hourly.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
And so he comes and puts his headphones on and he folds. So I have a couple of people who come and fold, and we fold too. And when we did the first initial, like,
Oh my lord. I ca I'm like, even your, like, release, I was like,
yes,
"Holy shnikes." And
yes,
then because I know just my own personal like, when I would order for a new release, and
yeah,
I would do the folding, and I would be, like, under my breath swearing because that's, like, the part that takes the longest, and
yeah.
then when it came to me and I'm like, "Thank you, Royce."
But
I'm like
I have a tribe. I have a tribe.
yeah,
One of the things about living in a small community is that it's community, right? And so for the launch, I had friends, family, contractors, girl. I had folding tables in the warehouse all set up, and we were just, I
that's
don't know,
awesome. That is
getting it
awesome.
done.
That is awesome. Well, I across the board from all your retailers, I can tell you that everybody loved it. That it was all folded because I think that was like one of the biggest struggles too. Like we'd get the paper. I love the paper and the only thing now is I have to change the size envelope, but I don't even care. I'm happy. I'm just
It's
love it
fun.
that
It's
you
fun.
yeah.
And so as a business owner, and I know you know this, you start out where you are. And I have friends and they're like, where should I start? I'm like, start where you are.
Right.
You start where you are, right? And you just always progressively, you work to improve systems and you just, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's a constant thing. I think I used to believe I would get to a point where like, okay, but no, don't let anybody fool you.
Don't. And like I always say, like my business is ever changing. And it's like I feel like if I ever feel stuck, I'm like, okay, a door is gonna open or something is gonna I'm gonna get a sign. This is the way I'm gonna go. And yeah, so it is ever changing. I always have ideas of where I want to take my business. And one thing like 2 years ago, I just, I had always thought like I wanted to create like a subscription box because my vision, I would love to have something like that. Like I had a vision of like what I would want and I wanted to create that. But at 2 years ago, I had no idea. And so like for instance, like all of a sudden I'm like, okay, it's gonna happen. And then I reached out to you and I was so excited when, you
I'm
agreed.
excited that you reached out to me.
Yeah. I was like, well, the most she can say is no. I'm like, my heart
Right?
was like palpitating, I'm like, I'm gonna ask her. And
But the
so
worst you can
what was that?
so I have 2 rules, and sometimes the second one gets me in trouble, but the worst that they can say is no, right?
Okay.
You
Yeah.
ask, and sometimes, not all the time, it's better to just ap apologize it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah. That one will give you in trouble.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes it
Yeah.
does. I don't use that one very often, but, sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
But,
So
it's true. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, that's okay. I was so excited that you agreed to do that. And, because I absolutely love your papers. I love promoting them and to have those fun papers in my maker's box. I'm so
I hope your
excited.
membership loves them.
Oh, they are so excited. Like, I have people, they thought I was going to launch on April 28th, not May. It's May 28th. Okay.
Okay.
So, but on April 28th, for whatever reason, like a bunch of people thought that it was happening April 28th. All of a sudden, like my inbox started I am like, what's
Um,
going on? They're like, we didn't get your email. You said you were going to send an email. I'm like, May 28th. Okay, settle down.
yeah, everybody
You've not missed out on anything. So yeah.
Wonderful.
So
How
they're really
exciting.
excited.
And I think for a lot of people too, so we were talking about earlier about like how we can gift, right, our people who are maybe just starting or they haven't, gained that confidence,
Mhm.
like doing the color matching for them and like giving them things that go together really nicely. Like a gift that you get every month, right?
Right.
And then you can create with confidence, knowing that the things in this box are going to work together.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. So I was so excited to see the papers and then yes, I pick out the colors that go with it. So I'm very excited. But I do need to I want to I've been dying to ask you because you send over all these beautiful designs. Like what inspires you or when you decide you're going to create like some papers? Like I mean, where do you start? Like, cause that one day too, you're like, I don't create well under pressure or whatever you
I
said.
don't. I don't do well under pressure. It has to like, yeah. So um our project is very unique for me. Like even when my friends would ask me for something, it was like this informal thing and I would just get it done whenever.
Yeah.
But like our thing that we're doing is super unique for me because usually my inspiration comes and then I create as opposed to like, can you make this thing? I
Yeah.
don't know. Can I make that thing? And then, my brain like, does that thing. But I'm inspired by tons of things. Like I collect ephemera. Like
Okay.
I legitimately, the reason why you always see that element of script or
Yes.
typography or something is because I love it.
Okay.
Like,
I love it too. Keep creating it.
And so I collect all these old documents and things. Some of my collections are physical, some of them are digital. And so often my inspiration may come from something. Sometimes when I go thrifting, I might see something that will like inspire me. Um, Sometimes, I don't know, it comes from everywhere.
Right.
I might see an artist, and it's not that I'm copying what they're doing, but maybe their approach to how they did something. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it comes from everywhere. Or when we drive around, we travel, and I think I've come to realize in my old age, I assumed everybody's brain worked like mine, but apparently not.
Right.
Apparently not. Like we're driving to Vegas, and the sun is setting, and there's like this it's not really haze, it's like a little fog, just a little bit in the sky. And so it's dispersing the light from the sun, and the road is like curving ahead of us. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yes.
see that. I've learned that other people don't see that. Like they're like, yeah, we're driving, it's a road. What? I'm like, don't you see that like this magnificent like
Right.
view? And they don't. And so I see the world differently, I think, than other. Even when I go for my walks,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like walking down the trail, and we have like a canal system that runs because we have a lot of farming here. And they have these big old metal things that go down to shut the water
Oh
off.
yeah.
And when they pull them up, and at some point it was painted blue, but now it's like rusty, and there's like a welded like number in it. Like to me, that's just as inspirational as the nature,
Right.
right? Or somebody's fence, it's like worn wood, and the wood is like grayish. I don't know.
Oh, I know what you're talking about because
Ah,
I have to tell you, so 2 summers ago, I fish a lot. I go up north fishing, and I was with a guide. And anyways, I was fishing this tournament. I'm with this guide. We're driving along. It's early in the morning, and it's kind of like dusky. And all of a sudden, I see this sign, and I see this cobweb. I'm like, "Stop!" He's like, "Stop!" I go, "I need to get this picture." He's like, "What?" But the lighting was perfect, and you could see like the cobweb. It was beautiful, and I put it on my page. And he's like, "Okay, well, we've just captured." I go, "You know, it's just like you'll never see that again." So, like, yes, the moments, yes, and that it was just absolutely gorgeous. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
ah. And so if you look, like I have notes on my phone, you know how you have your notes app? So
Yes,
whenever I get an idea, I write it down on my notes app because otherwise I won't remember,
right.
because it's in that moment.
Yes.
And
Oh,
sometimes they come at like 2 a.m. in the morning.
oh, yes. When you wake up, are you up at 2 a.m.?
No, I'm not up at 2. My brain will wake up and it's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool? And then like the whole thing starts, and I just get up and I come in here and I put it in my notes, and then
Oh,
I go back to bed.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, I love everything you create. I do.
No.
I mean, like, I don't know. I love your master boards. Um, I
And
think
those
that
are inspired by real master boards. Like
oh,
junk journalists, they'll make a master board and then
okay.
they'll cut from it from all their pages.
Oh, see, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So, and I know that like my view or like all my viewers and like people that, like even my customers, they just love those too because yeah, I just think it's amazing. Like one piece of paper, you can create so many upcycles with it or so many projects. So,
And that's why I love making them, because there's so many opportunities.
mhm,
I mean, you can make something big, you can make something small.
right.
And when I started, I was doing furniture art. I was a furniture artist first, right? And so everything was a larger scale. So I was doing that. But when my mom got sick, it was just harder and harder for me to have the time to dedicate to furniture.
Right.
So I started doing smaller crafts. And so then my designs have changed over the years. If you look at my earlier designs, you'll notice that the scale of them are all larger because in my
Okay.
mind, I was thinking about furniture.
Right.
So the master board allow me to serve both customers, because you can take it and you can use it on a drawer front,
Right.
absolutely, but you can also cut it up and use it on smaller crafts. And so
Yes.
I'm able to serve a lot of people with those.
I know. Keep them coming. I love birds, botanicals. I love all the fonts or I love all of it. I am
All
like,
the good stuff.
yeah. Yes. So, especially when you sent over like the fall one for my maker's box, I'm like, I actually squealed a little. I was like, I love it.
And you should see me. I'm like making them, and I'll be honest with you. So doing these designs for you has been super fun for me because for me, when I'm designing for Roycycled, I have to think, we have like, I don't know, 258. It's a lot of retailers,
Yeah.
right? And they're serving people who like farmhouse, and some people like industrial, and some people like pretty. And so there's more pressure to make sure that I'm serving a much larger audience.
Hmm.
And so being able to make papers for you and serving a smaller audience is fun because it actually frees me up,
Right.
right?
Awesome. I love it. I know. I was like, I hope she's enjoying this. I'm scared to ask her because I don't want her to say no. Like, I don't want to do it anymore or something. I'm like,
No,
oh, I hope.
the pressure at first was like, oh my gosh, I have to get these done because what was I do? I had just launched my membership. Anyways,
Right.
I do
Yes.
these
You
things
were
for
doing a
myself.
lot. And then I'm like, hey, Royce, do you have my papers?
I'm working on it. And I was working on it. And another thing for me is I have to let my things, like if I start a project, I'm more apt to not finish it in one sitting.
Yeah.
Like I'll work for even physical projects, I'll work on them and then I like have to let them like, and I'm a dork. I put it somewhere where I can see it.
Yes.
And then I just look at it periodically until I'm like hit with lightning. I'm like, ooh. And then I go and pick it up and then I finish it. And so
Right.
with my designs, it's the same way. For me to like sit down and hammer out something from start to finish in one sitting, it just, I mean, I can do it, but it's not going to be my best.
Right.
So I like to let things breathe and kind of live in here and mull around a little bit and then go back to it. And then sometimes when you're really close to something you're creating, you get to a point where you can't see it anymore.
Hmm.
And so you need to step away so you can get a new perspective. And you're like, oh, why did I put that there?
Right. Oh, I
Or
love it.
yeah,
Well, I am so excited, to yeah, keep those awesome designs coming.
thank
So,
you. I'm
yeah.
working on new designs for the holidays right now. And I'm always nervous because I have these ideas and I love doing things that I'm not seeing. Even though I guess some of my work, it feels like it's the same thing, but to me, it's not. Like, so
Mhm.
what I have coming is different from anything else that we're seeing in our niche right now,
Right.
which always makes me nervous, right? Like, are people going to be excited? Are they going to be like, what? We'll see.
They're gonna love it.
We'll see. But I am like insanely in love with it. And usually, if that's the case, then it translates. Like the grunge numbers, I had done designs and I like the pretty stuff. I do, but it's not necessarily like my vibe. And I was like, I need to make a design just for me, right? And so I sit down, I work on this design, and I love it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how well it's going to sell, but it's just for me. Well, everybody loves that one still, and it's
Oh,
been
yeah.
like years now since I made that design.
I know. Oh,
Yeah.
and I used it on my big window, the grunge numbers on it was actually one of my very first live projects where I had this 30 some pane window and I
Oh,
cut
I
out.
saw that one with
Yeah.
all the squares. I was
Yep.
watching you. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is she gonna use? Ooh, that's kind of cool.
I know. That was when I was a brand new retailer, so I didn't know any of the names of any of the papers, and I'm like, I probably should have wrote these down before I went live unprepared.
I forget the name sometimes, and I'm the one who's naming them. So I understand.
Oh,
But one of the most exciting parts, honestly, because I'll make these papers and like I can see the potential of what can be done, but I really don't know because it goes out into the universe and you watch these creative people and they do stuff. I'm like, ooh, I would have never thought of that.
mhm.
Like that excites me more than anything else. It's like because when I launch the papers, it goes to you guys first, right?
Yeah.
And then we launch to the public. So there's usually like a 3 or 4 month lag before I start seeing like a lot of projects. And so I'm like waiting because I want to see like what are people gonna do? What are
Right.
they gonna make?
Yeah.
Super exciting.
I know. So I asked actually, I picked like 5 or 6 people to send my maker's box to, and I asked them to also create. And then I have a date, and I asked them if they could release like a video or go live or do whatever. And so I'm really excited to see what they create because I am also creating with it myself. But So I just love, there's so many, like there's just so much creativity in the world and everyone has just a different vision. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that
Right?
sometimes?
Right? Like seriously, if someone would do something, I'm like, what? Yeah, why didn't I think of that?
I know.
Or sometimes I'm like, I would have never thought of that, but I
Right.
love that so
I
much.
know. I
Yeah.
know. And then I love taking like a piece of that inspiration and then twisting it to use like for myself. And yeah, there's just so much creativity and I just love it. So, and I love inspiring people. And so I'm always trying to, yeah, my brain never stops. My husband's like, do you ever stop? I'm like, no, I'm constantly like always trying to think of like the next best thing or like how I can use something. And you talked about how you were inspired. Like sometimes I just go out into my stash of items and I just stand there and I look at everything. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I see one piece and then it like inspires my entire video for that week. And I'm like, I grab this and this and this. And then I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I don't
It's
know.
cute though, because you bought it and it's because I have so much stuff. I have to. I have to destash because I have so much stuff.
Oh, you and
Maybe
me.
I'll do like, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll do like a video a day for like so many days and like make a whole bunch of stuff and take it to the shop. We'll see what happens. I don't know. But I just have too much stuff. And, with the warehouse and the membership and just the everyday of running the business, I haven't had a ton of time to create. But so in my tiny house, my poor son, my baby moved out in November 2 years ago. We've been empty nesters for a couple of years. And so he comes home for Christmas and like his room was like a full-on mail room.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, really, Mom?
Well, you moved out. So
I needed the space.
right.
So now we moved into the warehouse now. And so one room where I had a lot of my inventory, I had pegboard on every single wall. And all my ILD was hanging in there. And so, we moved everything to the warehouse and we're getting that set up for my grandson because he's here with us quite a bit. My son works at a copper mine in the neighboring county, 12-hour shifts. So we're like, just bring the baby, just because I'm not going to have him anyways. So we have him. So we're creating space for him. But the mail room is going to be my new like art studio. Like
Oh.
I want to create a space where I can just create.
Yes.
And so I'm super excited about that.
I am too.
Being deliberate. And so I'm going to pick a day a week. And like, it won't be the whole day. I can't afford a whole day. But like, I'm like, Friday mornings are going to be for me to go into my studio and just to discover.
Right.
Because if we're teaching and we don't make room for that discovery piece, we can reach a place where, we're not growing anymore. And so as creative business owners, it's hard because we have to be deliberate. Teresa from Decoupage Queen, she posted a post and she said how she wasn't going to be live because she was taking an art class and that she needed to make time for herself. And so I messaged her and I was like, you know what? Thank you so much for that. Like I needed to hear that today because generally I will try to make space to create, right? Like in between all the things. But as creative business owners, we really have to remember that we have to be deliberate about making space to be creative because how are we going to discover like new things to share if we don't?
I know. And that's why I stick to my schedule. I create a video every Monday and every Friday. And I like some days, do I want to do it? No, but I just force myself to do it. And I'm like, it's part of my business model. And I actually, like my husband's like, I love doing it, but my husband's like, don't you just love now being able to go and craft to your heart's content? I'm like, well, yes. But some days I don't I have to be inspired too, but I have to force myself. But yes, I love it. So I agree completely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and I love that you're friends with her.
Yeah, she used to be a retailer a long time ago.
Okay.
She was a retailer. And, I've had a couple of retailers who've gone on to do their own thing, which, I mean, it's like we're all growing and we're moving. I mean, and I wouldn't say like we're like really good friends, but like I think we're professional, like
Acquaintances.
Yeah. I mean, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like adversarial. Like
Right.
I
I
don't
know.
believe that has to be
There's
the case.
enough people to go around.
Right?
There is.
Exactly. And we're all doing different things. Just like
Yes.
I said, I have a lot of friends here that are makers. Like we all pick, we
Mhm.
all, remake things, but our styles are so different that we're all serving different people anyways,
Correct.
you know.
Yes.
And we go
Absolutely.
picking together.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Oh, well, good. Well, today has been awesome. And if I don't know if because we said it earlier, Royce is going to be at my October event. So
Yeah.
half the tickets have sold. And Royce and I are coming up with a game plan of what she's going to teach. I'm assuming something decoupage.
Something decoupage. I want to do some, I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to just do decoupage. Like I want to do something fun,
Yes. Yes.
something that can be finished in an hour with 60 people. But
Yeah. Right.
that's the other piece. Well, I taught at Pinners though, and that was the challenge. It's like, okay, I need to think of something that we can do start to finish within the hour, knowing that whenever I teach, because I've taught quite a bit now, like there's percentages.
Yeah.
You're gonna have like 2% of your people are gonna know everything and they're gonna work ahead,
Right.
right? And then you're gonna have about depending on probably in this space it may be lower, maybe 2% that need like extra help, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want to leave anybody behind, or
No.
I don't want anybody to leave my session feeling like they didn't get to learn. And so I just want to make sure that I make space for like, the different people and where they are. And I want people to walk away with something that they really enjoyed creating.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I think they're gonna
yeah.
everyone will enjoy everything. Well, we hope.
I'm
So
excited. Like I'm excited. There are people. Well, I met Lynn at Carmen's event in October.
oh
That was
yeah.
my first time meeting her in person. Like, we have people that we've chatted with, we've, messaged with, we watch them live, but like we've never met them in person. I mean, you and I met for the first time last April.
Right. And
Oh,
I felt like I knew you, so that's like kind of like how I feel like I know Lynn, and I've never met her either. So,
yeah. But I mean, you notice though, even at the event, we're all like engaging as if we've known each other forever, you
yes.
know.
Yes, like we're
And
all best friends. I like yeah. So I know. I love it. And I would have loved to have gone to Carmen's. That looked like it was so fun.
and Carmen's to me was a reprieve. Like I told I love her so much. I'm like, can you just take care of all the details, please, Miss Lexi?
Oh,
Because my stress level was just absolutely insane. Like the last quarter of last year, I needed that. Like that retreat for me, I needed to just, and it was just what I needed. Like, I
right.
don't know if I would have gotten through the quarter without that trip.
Oh,
I mean, I'm sure I would have, but you know what I'm
right.
saying.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Yeah, so I
you
hope
need to
that's how you
recall it.
feel about the October event, even though you don't like trees, I heard from my viewers.
I'm gonna I'm gonna post a video of my views here. It's not that I don't like trees. I live here in the Southwest, and like when I go on my walks, we're like in a valley, and I
Okay.
can see all. The only thing that's stopping my views are the mountains.
Okay.
I can see 50 miles,
Yes, and we
you
we
know.
can't see that far.
And so when you go to a heavily forested area, it just feels claustrophobic to me because everything is like right there.
Right.
You
Oh my
know,
gosh.
so it's not that I don't like trees. It's just different for me because
Mhm.
we're used to like it'd be like somebody in Montana, right? Isn't that
Right.
the big sky?
Yeah.
Going to a heavy forested area. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Oh, that's
It feels a
funny.
little claustrophobic because everything
Okay.
is just kind of right there. So
And
I'm not that I don't like them. You know.
okay. And don't worry, I'll have there's these little hot hands. I'll have those for you too, because it's you think it's gonna be like deathly cold. It will be fine.
It'll be fine. I'll be
No,
fine.
you'll be fine.
I'll
I'll
be
be
fine.
fine.
I'll be fine.
Oh,
No, I tease you, but
I know.
it'll be fine.
It will be
And
fine.
everyone's already told me that the fall there isn't like super cold. So
No, it's the days are very mild and warm typically, and it's it's so beautiful if like the sun is out and the tree, it's like full colors of all the trees. October, like that first weekend is like almost always peak of the colors as we call it. So it's like reds, oranges, yellows, and it's so pretty.
So
And the
I'm gonna come back
smell,
inspired.
you will. And the like the smells are so good. I can't describe it. So I hope you'll be totally inspired.
I will be. I will be. I'm claiming it now. I'll be totally inspired. It'll be beautiful. It's funny that you said smell because we went to a group for the Arizona Office of Tourism, and the Arizona's like working to like redo their branding. So I was like in this group to discuss. Well, anyways, so they're like, what do you think of when you think about Arizona? And I just said, there's nothing like that desert rain smell.
Oh yeah. I don't know what it smells like, but
I know. But I mean, it's funny that you said in the smells because yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're very tactile people. That's why we're
Right.
creative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like all the, like the sound, like it's the sound, the smell, the visual, everything. So yes. You're gonna love fall. You're gonna love Wisconsin.
I love fall. I know we don't have fall here, like not like you guys have it.
Oh, see, I think that's why I love Wisconsin so much because we really get all 4 seasons here. It's right now we're, like we're just gonna be heading into summer, but spring I love too, and all the little everything's popping up, and yeah. But anyway, enough with that. So I'm so excited that you're going to be here for my October event. And I'm so excited that you agreed to come on my podcast as well.
Thank you
So
for inviting me. This was fun.
yeah. And, where can our viewers find you and be as inspired as I am? Because you're on Facebook. You are on YouTube as well?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
Facebook.
Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest. On TikTok, I misbehave a little bit. You can find me over there.
Oh, I love it.
I don't share everything from TikTok on the other ones because I don't know. It's
Yeah.
different,
Yes.
But
Well,
yeah.
and I was all in on TikTok for a while. And then when they said that they were going to kibosh it, I'm like, do I go all in still? And I'm like, I'm just going to go back because
I'm making short form videos anyway. So I just share them everywhere. That's been my thing. I'm grateful for TikTok because it really did force me to kind of like do short form videos.
Right.
But now you have YouTube shorts, reels on Facebook and Instagram, even on Pinterest.
Right.
You have the videos. And so I'm like, if I'm going to make the video, I'm sharing
I'm
it everywhere I can.
Right. Absolutely.
Unless I'm misbehaving, then
right.
I don't.
And then it's only on TikTok. I love it. Well, good. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you guys for watching or listening. And in next week's episode, I'm going to start diving into how I became a thrifter, a rescuer, and an upcycler. So join me for that episode. And if you guys are listening, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you guys don't miss out on an episode. And then if you guys don't already, follow me over on Instagram and Facebook. I put out a lot more content over there and want to start doing sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.